She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You'll never forget me." I laughed then, but she was right. I'll never forget the night she tore my heart apart, or the day I made sure she'd remember who she betrayed. Karma doesn't forget either. If you've ever been betrayed by the one you trusted most, stick around. This story is for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because what comes next will make you believe in karma again. I used to believe that love, when real, was unbreakable. That when you found someone who made your world brighter, you held on no matter what. That was before Leora Vale came into my life. She didn't walk in like a storm. She drifted in like sunlight through an open window, quiet, warm, and impossible to ignore. She had this way of making everything feel cinematic. The kind of person who could turn an ordinary Tuesday into something that felt like a scene out of a movie, and I fell for it. Every bit of it. I wasn't the type to fall easily. My life. It was predictable. Deadlines, drawings, and quiet nights filled with the hum of my laptop. I'm an architect. My world made sense because I designed it that way. But Leora, she was chaos wrapped in silk. When she smiled, logic didn't matter. I told myself I could handle her wildness, that her unpredictability was just passion in disguise. Funny how we lie best when we're trying to protect what we love. In the beginning, everything felt effortless. She'd leave little notes on my desk, send voice messages that ended with "You're my calm in this crazy world." And I believed her. God, I believed her. I thought we were building something real, brick by emotional brick. But I should have seen it, the cracks hiding beneath her laughter, the distance behind her eyes when I talked about the future. There was one night, early on, when she leaned against me and whispered, "You'll never forget me." I laughed it off, thinking she meant it like a promise. But sometimes words come with warnings disguised as affection. I just didn't know hers would echo long after she was gone, or how right she'd turn out to be. It started so quietly that I almost missed it, the kind of shift you only notice when it's too late. At first, it was little things. Leora's phone always flipped face down when it buzzed. Her laughter became more guarded, shorter, like she was saving the real one for someone else. I told myself she was just stressed, that everyone drifts a little when life gets heavy. But deep down, something inside me had started to tighten, a quiet, unexplainable knot of unease. She began having late meetings, a new client, a demanding project. The excuses were polished, believable. I never questioned her because trust had always been our unspoken rule. But love built on trust turns fragile when silence starts filling the spaces where truth used to live. Some nights I'd stay up, tracing the glow of her contact name on my phone screen, waiting for a message that never came. When it finally did, it was always the same. "Sorry, I fell asleep." Simple words that somehow felt heavier than they should.
Ow.
Then there were her stories, the ones that didn't quite match. A restaurant she said she tried for the first time, but I remembered she'd mentioned it weeks ago. A perfume she claimed was new, but it wasn't. The details didn't add up, yet I kept pretending they did, because the alternative was too painful to admit. One evening, I caught my reflection waiting by the window, phone in hand, eyes searching the street like a fool in love. I realized I was no longer waiting for her, I was waiting for reassurance. That's when I knew something was wrong. I didn't have proof yet, but I could feel it. The beginning of the end had already begun. It happened on one of those nights that start like any other, too ordinary to be remembered, too important to ever forget. We were in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken words. I'd asked her something simple, something harmless, why she'd been distant lately. Her eyes didn't flinch, but her smile. It changed. It wasn't soft like it used to be. It was sharp, the kind that cuts without drawing blood. She shrugged and said, "You worry too much, Elias. You'll drive yourself insane trying to read my every move." I tried to laugh to keep things light, but my voice cracked halfway through. She tilted her head, studying me like I was some stranger she couldn't quite figure out. Then, out of nowhere, she whispered, "You'll never forget me." I remember freezing. The way she said it, it wasn't playful, not romantic. It sounded like a verdict, like a warning wrapped in silk. I asked her what she meant, but she only smiled and walked away. leaving her perfume hanging in the air, hauntingly sweet and impossible to escape. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words looped in my mind like an echo that refused to fade. "You'll never forget me." Why would she say that? Was it confidence? Or confession? I stared at the ceiling until morning, telling myself I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew something had cracked between us, invisible but irreversible. Looking back now, that was the moment she stopped being my peace and became my storm. I just didn't recognize it yet. Love has a cruel way of disguising its own funeral, and sometimes the warning comes from the very lips that will bury it. The truth doesn't always crash into you sometimes. It creeps in quietly, one uneasy detail at a time. For me, it started with something small. I found a wine glass on the counter one night after Leora said she was working late. There were two glasses, actually, one with a smudge of lipstick that wasn't her usual shade. A small thing, right? But it felt like a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. After that, I began noticing everything. A faint cologne on her scarf that wasn't mine. Laughter, soft, flirty, and unfamiliar, echoing in the background during one of her work calls. Her phone, once so casually left around, now stayed locked, face down, like a secret she guarded with her life. Each clue on its own was nothing but together. They built a story I didn't want to read. One evening, I picked up her jacket to hang it, and a hotel keycard slipped from the pocket. My heart stuttered. I told myself it could be business-related. Maybe a conference. Maybe anything. But even lies need to be believable, and mine wasn't anymore. That night I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the untouched dinner I'd made. My hands were steady, but my mind wasn't. I scrolled through her photos, her messages. Every little piece of our life that once felt so genuine, everything suddenly looked staged, too perfect, too performed. It was then I realized I was living in a story she had already rewritten. The woman I loved wasn't just drifting away. She was already gone. I just hadn't accepted it yet. The truth was standing right beside me all along. I just kept pretending it wasn't looking me in the eye. Every person has a moment when denial finally breaks. Mine came on a Thursday. Ordinary day, ordinary silence. I was at work when a mutual friend, Aiden, stopped by for coffee. We hadn't spoken in months. He asked casually, "So, how was Leora's business trip?" She said you couldn't join her this time. Business trip. My chest tightened. I hadn't known she'd gone anywhere. I managed to smile, nodded like I knew what he meant. But inside my thoughts were screaming. The rest of the day blurred. Deadlines, meetings, voices, all faded beneath the sound of my heart pounding against the truth. When I got home, she was already there, humming in the kitchen, wearing the same perfume I'd smelled on that hotel keycard. I remember just standing there, watching her move like nothing was wrong. She noticed my stare and asked, "What's wrong?" I wanted to say everything. I wanted to scream that I knew. But instead, I said nothing. Because sometimes, silence says more than any accusation could. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched her lying beside me, peaceful, unaware that the world she built on lies was about to collapse. My mind replayed every smile, every kiss, every "I love you," and each one began to sound like a rehearsed line. By morning, something inside me shifted. The ache turned into steel. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just decided. I decided I wouldn't confront her with words anymore. Words were her weapon, mine would be patience. From that day forward, I stopped reacting. I started watching. I started listening. Because the thing about truth is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once I saw her for who she really was, there was no going back. I used to believe there was nothing worse than suspecting the person you love is lying to you. I was wrong. The worst part is proving yourself right. The night I found out the city was soaked in rain, Leora had said she was out for a client dinner, the same excuse I'd heard too many times. Something in me snapped. I grabbed my keys, no plan in mind, just the burning need to know. Her favorite restaurant was downtown, a place she always claimed had the best view. I parked across the street, heart beating like it was trying to escape. Through the glass, I saw her sitting across from Darren Creed, her boss. They were close. Too close. Her hand brushed his, and she laughed, that same soft laugh that used to be mine. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen between disbelief and fury. But then she looked up and saw me. Her smile faltered. I walked in, each step heavy, echoing with everything I'd ever given her. "Work dinner, huh?" said. My voice was calm to calm. She blinked, tried to play innocent, but Darren's expression said it all. "Elias, you're making a scene," she hissed. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound I didn't recognize. "No, Leora, you made the scene. I'm just finally watching it for what it is." She stood, eyes blazing, and slapped me. Not out of shame, but anger. And then she whispered it again, that same cursed line, "You'll never forget me." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You're right." Then I turned and walked out, feeling the weight of her betrayal settle into my bones. That was the night love died, and something far colder took its place. After that night, something inside me went silent. Not broken, just quiet. People say heartbreak destroys you, but it doesn't. It rebuilds you differently. I stopped chasing answers, stopped questioning why she did it. The why didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what I would do next. In the weeks that followed, I became a ghost of myself, but a focused one. I went to work early, stayed late, spoke little. The man who once measured life in love started measuring it in precision. Every blueprint I drew felt like a metaphor for control, something I'd lost and was desperate to regain. My colleagues said I seemed calmer. They mistook calm for peace. It wasn't peace. It was preparation. I deleted her photos, every message, every trace of softness she'd left behind. But erasing her wasn't healing. It was strategy. I knew her patterns, her need for validation, her hunger for attention. I started observing her from a distance, not as a lover, but as a study. Who she met, where she went, what she posted. I wasn't stalking. I was collecting data the same way an architect studies cracks before a structure collapses. In that quiet rebuilding, I changed. My body hardened, my voice steadied, my emotions turned sharp as glass. I no longer wanted revenge out of pain. I wanted justice out of balance. For the first time in months, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't see the man she betrayed. I saw the man she underestimated. And there's something poetic about that, how the person who tried to destroy you becomes the reason you rise stronger than ever. That was the moment I stopped being her victim and started becoming her consequence. Revenge didn't come to me as anger. It came as clarity. One night, I sat in my office long after everyone had left, staring at the city lights. That's when I realized I didn't have to destroy her. All I had to do was give the truth a little push. The rest would handle itself. Darren Creed, her boss, her secret, had a reputation. People whispered about shady contracts and offshore deals, but no one ever proved anything. I knew where Leora fit into it. She was smart, persuasive, and dangerously loyal to whoever held her attention. She thought she was climbing the ladder. She didn't see she was standing on a trap door. I started small, quietly collected files, emails, conversations. I never hacked anything, never crossed lines. I just listened, watched, connected dots others ignored. Leora unknowingly helped me. She'd forward company documents to her personal email to work from home. And I had access to it once, from a time when we trusted each other. That trust became my leverage. Weeks passed. The puzzle started forming. Illegal money transfers, fake invoices, backdoor clients. Every piece linked Darren to crimes that could bury him. And Leora's name appeared right beside his, not as a victim, but as his assistant in the cover-up. I didn't rush it. Revenge isn't about timing. It's about precision. I compiled everything and sent it, anonymously to the company's legal department and a journalist known for exposing corporate frauds. Then I waited. When the story broke, it was everywhere. Darren's empire crumbled overnight, and Leora. She wasn't celebrated as his partner. She was exposed as his accomplice. The woman who once played with power was now powerless. And the best part? I never had to lift a hand. Karma did the heavy work for me. The morning the news broke, I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. But I felt something I hadn't in months, a quiet, steady satisfaction. Darren Creed, the man who thought he was untouchable, was facing charges that would keep him behind bars for years. Leora Vale, the woman who whispered, "You'll never forget me," was no longer untouchable either. Her name was on every headline. Her reputation shattered, her career in ruins. I watched from a distance as she tried to salvage what was left: frantic emails, desperate calls, apologies to anyone who would listen. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Every word she sent was proof that the world she had built on manipulation and lies was collapsing around her. And for the first time, I understood the power of patience. Revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in quiet satisfaction, like justice wearing a calm suit. She called me once. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked, trembling with guilt. "Elias, please. I didn't mean for this. I didn't know." I listened, cold and still, as the weight of her betrayal finally settled fully into her own chest. And in that moment I realized she had learned the hardest lesson, that actions have consequences, and some of them you can't escape, no matter how clever you think you are. I didn't gloat. I didn't relish her pain. I simply let the truth speak for itself. The woman who tried to define me through her lies had become the example of what happens when deceit meets patience. And that, I thought, is the kind of karma that doesn't just sting, it teaches. The city was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that makes you notice everything. The hum of distant traffic, the rustle of leaves, the faint whisper of wind through the streets. I walked alone, shoes echoing softly against the pavement, carrying nothing but a small pendant she had left behind. The weight of it in my hand felt heavier than it should, loaded with memory, betrayal, and lessons I had learned too late. I stopped at the river where we had first met, the place that once felt like the start of forever. I held the pendant over the water, watching the reflections dance across its surface. For a moment, I could see her there, smiling, laughing, radiant in her chaotic way. But that version of Leora was gone, just like the trust she had shattered. I took a deep breath, and without hesitation, I let it slip from my fingers. The water swallowed it, and with it, the last pieces of my attachment. I realized then that she had been right all along. I would never forget her. Not because of love, not because of longing, but because she had shown me how dangerous love could be when blinded by trust. The memory of her betrayal would stay with me, but it would no longer hurt. It had forged me into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone untouchable by the illusions of others. I turned away from the river, feeling the cool air on my face, and smiled softly. There was freedom in letting go, in closing the chapter fully. She would always be a part of my story, but she would no longer be the author. And for the first time in a long while, I walked forward lighter, carrying only the lessons and the quiet satisfaction of karma served just right. Betrayal has a way of teaching lessons that nothing else can. It doesn't just hurt, it transforms. I've learned that the people who break us, who twist our love into their playground, aren't always enemies in the traditional sense. They're mirrors. They reflect the parts of ourselves we refuse to see, our vulnerabilities, our blind trust, our patience, and our capacity for growth. Leora Vale was my mirror. She shattered it, and in the shards, I found clarity. Karma isn't always loud. It doesn't always strike immediately. Sometimes it waits, silent and patient, until the weight of truth can no longer be ignored. The woman who once whispered, "You'll never forget me," is right. I never will. Not because of the love I once felt, but because she became the reason I discovered my own strength. Watching the consequences of her choices unfold wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. Life has a way of leveling the scales, and when it does, it spares no one who underestimates it. I don't tell this story to glorify what happened or to dwell in bitterness. I tell it because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for the courage to see through the lies, to recognize the truth, and to let go with dignity. Betrayal doesn't define you, how you respond does. I could have been broken, hollow, consumed by anger. Instead, I chose patience, observation, and precision. And that choice changed everything. So, if you've ever been deceived, remember this. The person who betrays you will always underestimate the strength that grows in silence. Karma doesn't need your hands to work. It waits. It balances. And when it does, it teaches a lesson far more satisfying than any immediate revenge. Sometimes the sweetest justice is simply letting life do what it does best, revealing the truth, and leaving the betrayer to face the consequences.